Hey, thanks everybody for coming today. Hopefully you're in the right place. This is Mobility as a Service platforms, obviously a focus on transportation and all the integrated modes of transportation, from light rail and buses all the way down to scooters, bike share, and even walking. We have a few distinguished speakers here today. We have Ruben Franklin from the city of St. Augustine. He's their mobility coordinator. We have David Kramer from Ford Emerging Technologies. And we have a special surprise. We have Andy Bonneau from the Gotcha Group. And here's Andy.
All entries should be made.
That's beautiful. Thanks, Andy. I'd just like to quickly review that the Smart City practice at ARC is a fairly new one. We started it formally a little over a year ago with Rob DeAngelo, our business development director. I lead this effort. Eddie Fiddler is here. He works with me on transportation issues and studies. We have Epan Jacob, who works on building automation, security, fire alarms, anything integral to the infrastructure of the built environment. Larry O'Brien is our cybersecurity guy. Many of you know him. He's been with ARC for quite a while. Alex Chatta works on lighting and integrated smart city platforms. Rick Risch is our energy guru, microgrids, photovoltaic, automated demand response. He's a great resource. A new person who joined the team is Wasey Rashid. He's focusing, he's in Munich, and he focuses on rail applications, freight, passenger, light rail. And I mentioned Rob DeAngelo. So it's a very robust team, and we have very aggressive plans for the next year. Some of you who have been here this week know we've had a very substantive series of sessions. We're nearing the end of the list. We're obviously in Mobility as a Service at present. At 10:30, we have a very compelling presentation on smart parking and the range of smart parking technologies, from kiosks to some AI platforms to even parking elevators. So what exactly is Mobility as a Service? Well, it relies on a digital platform that integrates end-to-end trip planning, booking that trip, electronic ticketing, and paying for that service. End-to-end trip planning including all the possible, ideally, modes that are available, from your own feet to the scooter, to the bike, light rail, bus, Uber, Lyft, and your private cars, Turo, any mode you can think of, including, we had a discussion earlier this week, including perhaps autonomous drones. So what's driving the Mobility as a Service market? Increasing urbanization. Traffic is not getting any better. The apps economy. 10 years ago, we really didn't have that, but now everyone's very comfortable ordering a movie, food, you name it. And we already see, pizzas getting delivered by autonomous vehicles. The gig economy. How many of us have ridden in an Uber or a Lyft? Autonomous vehicles, albeit in a limited way, are actually on the market. There's probably a dozen vendors of autonomous shuttles that work in either a geofenced area or a 3 or 4 or 5 mile radius that actually do deliver people. Vehicle electrification is obviously coming. And, of course, not only the Internet of Things, but the Internet of everything. Everything's a sensor today. And, of course, micro vehicles, bikes and scooters are out there. I come from South Florida, and recently I drove through Fort Lauderdale, who only approved scooters maybe a month ago. You can't go a block without finding a scooter that you could rent. So what are the applications or the modes that can be included? Autonomous vehicles, connected vehicles, bikes, e-bikes, scooters, IoT-enabled train, buses, light rail, shuttle pools, I neglected to mention earlier. The interesting part and the real magic of it is not so much the somewhat legacy modes of transportation, but the integrated management platform, that software management platform that allows the brokering of what mode do you choose to use and how do you pay for it and how do you integrate two or more of those. There is some interesting work being done in a number of areas using blockchain so that you might have your own private record, your ledger of your past travels, and that the thought is you would provide that to some transportation management service, similar to say an Orbitz or a Travelocity, and they would bid on your trip based on where you want to go today, how fast you want to go today, and what you did in the past. Because you might get a different rate if you take that trip 5 days a week rather than if it's a one-off. So what other trends are driving this? Well, your own car, the average auto utilization rate has been quoted as low as 2%. It's a very expensive asset that tends to stand idle a great majority of the time. Expectations, particularly from millennials, for better transport options are happening, and even the immediacy of that transportation. Also, in the last 5 or 10 years, there's been truly substantive research on the negative impacts of traffic and what that does to commerce. And today, mobility as a service options are far more usable, efficient, and cost-effective than public transit options. It's just easier. You get your Uber in 3 minutes, and meanwhile, you have to wait for light rail for a half an hour, and very often is late. Mass also solves one of the most critical problems of public transit, which is that last mile problem. How do you get from the train station or the bus station or whatever transportation depot you have to your home? So what's the future? There will be large effects for the transportation industry, the automakers, and any other industry that touches this ecosystem, from insurance to healthcare to energy and even the media. Since 2016, Helsinki residents have been able to use an app to plan and pay for all modes of public and private transportation within the city, including train, bus, taxi, car share, and bike share. And that was 3 years ago. So just summing up, services like Netflix have fundamentally changed the way people search for, consume, and pay for media. The same thing is very likely to happen with transportation. So with that, I'll introduce Andy, and he's got a few slides he'd like to discuss.